When most people think of chains, they usually think of them in a negative way, like a person being chained because of slavery or an animal being chained because of animal cruelty. However, chains are not always negative, they can also be positive. In this week's Bible Nuggets, we're going to be doing a character study of two people from the Bible. We're going to be learning from their lives and the chains that they chose. Hello and welcome back to a new week of Bible Nuggets. If you're new here, my name is Ritendo, and here Towards Jesus with Ritendo, we're on a mission to be with Jesus, to become like Jesus, and to do what Jesus did. We do that by spending time with God in His Word and learning from Him. After having learned from Him, we apply what we've learned not only to our lives, but to the places and spaces that God has put us in society. So if that's something that you're interested in, be sure to subscribe. I'd love to have you be a part of the community. Without any further ado, let's get into the Bible Nuggets of the week. So the first character study is on Daniel. We come to know of Daniel during the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar. Now the king was looking for Israelite men of royal blood who were young, who were wise, who were gifted. And Daniel was one of the men that was chosen to be those people who would be brought into the king's palace to serve him. Apart from being of royal blood, of being learned and wise and handsome and skilled, Daniel had a gift of interpreting visions and dreams. As you continue to learn about Daniel and his life and his lifestyle, you come to know that he chose a chain of prayer. We see this in Daniel 6, where there are various verses that tell us that. Daniel 6 verse 10, 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to God, as he had done before. In Daniel 13, it tells us that he still prays 3 times a day. In Daniel 6 verse 16, this is the king speaking to Daniel. He says that may your God whom you serve continuously rescue you. In Daniel 6 verse 19, the king speaking to Daniel again is saying, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God whom you serve continually been able to rescue you? So we can see here in Daniel chapter 6 that Daniel clearly had a chain, clearly had why am I calling it a chain? Firstly, I'm calling it a chain because a chain is not something that's always easy to do. A chain is something that restrains you, right, to a specific thing, to a specific habit. It's like a lifestyle. So Daniel, he chose a chain of prayer. And when you look at that, because this was a chain that he chose in his life, it produced really tremendous results. Firstly, he was the only person during the time of King Nebuchadnezzar that could interpret the dreams that the king was having. So the king, during that time, God spoke a lot to the kings and people in dreams. And King Nebuchadnezzar was having these very troubling dreams, and he called on all the wise men, the dream interpreters, the diviners of the land to interpret these dreams. However, no one could do that except Daniel. And when Daniel was able to tell the meaning of these dreams, he got honored. We see that King Nebuchadnezzar made Daniel ruler. He put him in charge of all the wise men of Babylon during that time. And even after King Nebuchadnezzar was no longer a king, we see that Daniel, during the time of King Nebuchadnezzar's son's reign, that was King Belshazzar, he also, like his father Nebuchadnezzar, had very troubling dreams, and they couldn't find anyone in the land who could be able to interpret those dreams except for Daniel. And when Daniel was able to interpret those dreams, he was honored. The king Belshazzar basically made a decree that whoever is able to interpret this dream, he's going to honor them, he's going to clothe them in purple linen, he's going to make them the third highest ruler in the land. And Daniel was able to interpret that dream, and because he was able to do that, he got appointed as the third highest ruler in Babylon. Here what we can learn is that choosing a positive change, choosing a positive habit, it's not always easy. However, it leads to your life being improved. What does that look like in today's age and time? You and I, we can maybe choose a chain of saying, okay, we're going to choose to be healthy, we're going to choose to pursue healthy lifestyles. Now, it's not easy to always wake up and exercise, jog, go to the gym. It's not easy to always eat healthy food, and sometimes eating healthy is quite boring. Healthy food can sometimes be very bland and not very tasty, right? It's not an easy thing to do. It's a chain that we're tying ourselves to, but the results of that chain are positive. And like Daniel, in his time, he chose a chain of prayer. It was a positive thing that he chose to do, and because of that, it produced tremendous results. Now let's move on to someone who did opposite of what Daniel did, someone who chose negative chains. Let's look at their life and let's see what we can learn from them. And this person is Samson. Before Samson was born, his mother was barren, and an angel of the Lord appeared to Samson's mother, and he basically told her that she was going to bear a son, and her son was going to be set apart for the Lord. He was going to be a champion for the Israelites, because during the time of Samson, the Israelites were being oppressed by the Philistines, and so God brought Samson as a gift to be a person that could stand against the Philistines and help defend the Israelites, right? Now, the angel gave Samson's mother a lot of rules about how she was to carry out her pregnancy with Samson. And he also gave out rules about what would happen when he's born. And one of those rules was that Samson's hair was not to be cut, because it was going to be because it was his source of strength. And so we see Samson growing to have the supernatural strength that was empowered by God, right? However, as you continue to learn about Samson, you will see that Samson had a problem. Samson chose the wrong chains, and the chain that he chose was a chain of pursuing the wrong kind of woman. The first time we see of his love life, he had chosen a woman from the Philistines. He found love in the enemy's camp, which is something that he was not supposed to do. It was basically forbidden during that time. He still went forward with getting married to his Philistine wife. And when you read about his love with his wife, there was a time where he had a bet with the Philistines about a riddle, and he lost that bet because the Philistines used his wife to get the answer out of him. You would think that he would have maybe learned a lesson from that, but he didn't. Long story short, his wife ends up being murdered. And then the second time we come to see about Samson being involved with a Philistine woman is when he spent a night at a Philistine prostitute's house. Now, the first time he did this, we could maybe excuse it. We could say, oh, it was his first love, he was still young, but he did it a second time. Clearly this is a choice, and he is choosing this chain. He is choosing this habit of going to find women from the enemy's camp where he's not supposed to, right? And then the third time we see of Samson being involved with a Philistine woman is with Delilah. And unfortunately, after he had started being involved with Delilah, the Philistines, just like with the first Philistine woman that he married, Delilah was used as an instrument to get the source of his strength. And once the Philistines got the source of his strength through Delilah, Samson ended up losing his hair and his strength. He ended up losing his eyesight. The Philistines, they captured him, they took out his eyes. Ultimately, we read and we see that he lost his life because he was choosing the wrong chain. Maybe if he had chosen a different chain, maybe if he had chosen to stay with within his tribe, or the chain of being with women that are from his tribe, the story could have ended differently. Maybe he could have lived longer. Maybe his death would have been a peaceful death. So we see here that just like positive chains, Negative chains are also not easy. However, with negative chains, they lead to destruction and they lead to death. How can that look like in today's age, in 2026? Like choosing habits like maybe not working out. Eventually, these things become chains, and these chains lead to destruction. Lower life expectancy, you're not healthy, you're not able to be there for your family. So clearly we have to choose a change. There is no neutral ground. Not doing nothing is still doing something. And if you have to pick between a good struggle and a bad struggle, a good chain and a bad chain, you might as well pick a good chain, because at least a good chain is going to lead to your life improving and getting better, right? If you're someone watching this and you have maybe chosen chains that have led you to a place where you don't want to be in, where there is life, there is hope. We serve a God of restoration, and when you repent and choose to start taking steps to do better, God will be there to meet you at your point of need, and He's gonna be there to pour out His grace and to help you pivot and change your narrative. And I pray that we all choose the right chains. They may not be easy, however, they are what will benefit us in the long run. Be it spiritual chains, be it just life chains. Like that is all from me for this week's nuggets. Do let me know which part of this nugget stood out to you the most. If you have a question or an opinion, also let me know of that in the comment section. See you again next week.